Welcome to the 17th season of Gridiron Glory. It's finally here. We may be a week away from football, but let's get started tonight. We'll be recapping last year's action where we saw 4 teams go unbeaten. The last season's in the past. Our reporters will be here to bring you up to date on how your teams are shaping up. And off the field, the OHSAA passed new concussion regulations. It's all up next on Gridiron Glory. It's time to kick off another season of Gridiron Glory, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. I'm your host, Justin Holbrook, and if you're like me, you've been waiting for this fall ever since the last one ended, because as you know, there's nothing quite like high school football in Southeast Ohio. Now, before we dive into previewing this season, we came up with a little something for you to watch, so you can get a better handle of who I am and why I, a huge football fan, can't wait to host this show for you. My name is Justin Holbrook, and I'm your host of Gridiron Glory this year. I guess some random stuff about me. My favorite movie is Forrest Gump, but anything with Tom Hanks is good by me. I'd say my favorite show is Seinfeld, and my dad got me hooked on that probably since I was in junior high. As far as artists go, I would say Jimmy Buffett, I'm a huge fan, and Frank Sinatra are both good by me. I'm from a small town in Ohio called Monroe. It's about 45 minutes from Cincinnati. It's a smaller town, but it's definitely a football town. So when I came over here and I saw how excited these fans are for high school football, it reminded me a lot of being back home. It's hard to start where I like about football, and there's really nothing to not like. Gridiron's just been my passion ever since I got here to school because you go to class and everything like that, and it's great, but you get to look forward to Friday nights and going to those games. I know it may be hard to believe, but Gridiron is a lot like football because when you run out of that tunnel, you have so much excitement coming out, and it's just the same as when you're going into the studio because we have a little on-air sign that I like to jump up and hit before games, just like when you're in the locker room and you hit those signs coming out for motivation and the nerves and the excitement, and we do our breakdown huddle before the show and we get each other all hyped up for the show, so you'd be surprised how similar it is, high school football and Gridiron really is. Well, now it's fair to say you know more about me than you probably wanted to, but all jokes aside, I'm extremely excited for this season to start. But before that, we're going to rewind a bit and take you through last year's action. As arguably the strongest conference we cover, the MVL title can usually be determined by losing a single game, with the winner boasting an unblemished record. Last year, things were no different, with Tri-Valley posting a perfect record by never giving up more than a touchdown a game. Tri-Valley's biggest test came on October 24th against Maysville, with both teams entering the game undefeated. Tri-Valley handled the game the way they did all season long and beat the Panthers by 4 touchdowns. Both teams would go on to lose in the regional semifinals, while Sheridan missed the playoff cut despite an 8-2 record. The SEOAL title has been changing hands over the past 3 years, and the Jackson Ironmen made sure it was their turn last season. Led by Andy Hall and 20 returning starters, Jackson stormed through 2014 by crushing every team in its path. The Ironmen averaged just over 5 touchdowns a game while holding teams to a touchdown or less in half of their games. The Logan Chieftains, who won the conference the previous year, struggled to find a rhythm, winding up with a 500 record. In the TVC Hocking, the team to go through is the Trimble Tomcats. Trimble finished last season the same way they did in 2013 by going unbeaten and scoring a program-high 50.7 points a game. A big reason for that was Justice Jenkins, who ran for 1,613 yards and 31 touchdowns. Trimble would go on to win their 2nd straight regional championship, but fell to St. Paul in the state semifinal. Belpre also made the playoffs by finishing with an 8-2 record, but lost in the first round. And last but not least, the Athens Bulldogs and their dominance, not only in the TVC Ohio, but all of Ohio as well. The Bulldogs, led by Joe Burrow, smashed school records on their way to a 2nd straight perfect season. But unlike 2013, the Bulldogs were able to advance past the regional final and made it all the way to the state championship, where they lost to Toledo Central Catholic in a heartbreaking 56-52 loss. Burrow was named Mr. Football in the state of Ohio with 63 touchdowns, nearly 4,500 yards passing, and led the offense to score a state record 861 points, making 2014 a historic and unforgettable year for the Athens Bulldogs. Athens had by far the most prolific offense in the TVC Ohio, but Nelsonville York's ground game was right there at the top, while Alexander went from a 1-9 team to one that provided a threat every Friday night.
The 2014 TVC Ohio season was certainly one to remember. The Vinton County Vikings and Wellston Golden Rockets were rebuilding programs a season ago, as they both finished at the bottom of the standings with a 1-5 conference record. Meanwhile, the Ohio welcomed a brand new bunch in the River Valley Raiders. First-year head coach Jared Sparling and the Raiders jumped out to a 3-0 start, but struggled in the latter half of the season, dropping 5 of their last 7 games, ending 1-5 in TVC play. The biggest surprise in the conference came from Albany, where coach Alex Penrod transformed a 1-9 finish in 2013 to a stingy 500 opponent, finding their way to the middle of the pack. Nearing the top of the standings, the Megs Marauders followed a high-powered offense fueled by senior running back Michael Davis to a third-place finish at 4-2. The title was not decided until Week 10. The unblemished Nelsonville York Buckeyes, led by sophomore sensations Hunter Edwards and Alex Mount, squared off with the unbeaten powerhouse Athens Bulldogs. The Doc Kroner Trophy remains in the Plains after a 48-22 Bulldogs victory, and Athens reclaimed the throne as kings of the conference.
As memorable as last year was for Athens, it's a new year and the slate has been wiped clean. And Michael, you know teams in the TVC Ohio will be gunning for that conference title.
Well, as you mentioned, Justin, it's a new season, and with a new season, that means it's time to roll out a new set of TVC Ohio power rankings. Now, the Ohio is a bit of a toss-up this season, and to me it seems like it'll be a 3-team race. With an experienced backfield known for making big plays, the Nelsonville York Buckeyes are my favorites to win the conference this season. And, despite losing some familiar faces, Athens not far behind, they're at number 2, and then rounding out the top 3, we have the Alexander Spartans.
Now, before we move on to the rest of the conference, I want to know why you put NY ahead of everyone else.
Well, it really just boils down to experience. Athens lost a ton, and NY returns all 3 of their top playmakers, in quarterback Hunter Edwards and running backs Noah Andrews and Alex Mount. Plus, Coach Boston and his staff have been preparing this team for it all off-season.
Our mindset's Nelsonville York mindset. Our kids are tough kids. They work hard. They know what football's all about, and they feel they always have an opportunity to win. So, we don't go into a season knowing, that someone's a league champion. We go in it fighting to win the league championship.
Athens brings back a few seasoned vets, but the inexperience at crucial positions like the offensive line and quarterback really make it difficult to pick the dogs over the Bucks.
What about those Spartans? Why are they in your top 3?
Well, in just one season, Alex Penrod took Alexander from a 1-win team to a 500 team. And this year they really look like a team that's ready to take that next step. And with Mason Chapman anchoring both the offense and the defense, they definitely have the talent to do it.
Well, is there a team that you could see being a dark horse in the TVC Ohio?
Oh, it's got to be River Valley. They have over 20 returning letter winners this season, and they know exactly what's expected of them. Megs has a chance to make some noise with their offense, but they have too many question marks defensively.
Well, thanks, Michael, and happy birthday to you, too. Now, can't make it to a game? Why go through the hassle of texting your friends for the score when you could just follow Gridiron Glory on Twitter for live game updates? And if you're at the game, you can use the hashtag Glory15 to interact with us while the game is going on. You can also tweet at us anytime during the week by using that Glory15 hashtag. And we've heard football coaches say, shake it off or rub some dirt on it. But the Ohio High School Athletic Association wants to take every injury seriously, especially head injuries. And Blaine Caraher is with me now. Blaine, it looks like the state of Ohio is really stepping up to protect young athletes.
Yeah, Justin, I mean, we've all heard these stories from professional athletes about the long-term effects of concussion. So now the state looks to reduce head injury with new recommendations for the 2015 season.
Go! Come on, Corey. Come on, Corey. Let's go!
The crunch of shoulder pads colliding signals the start to another season of high school football. But this summer's two-a-day practices were different. In June, the OHSAA adopted recommendations to reduce the risk of concussions. The biggest change is that players are only permitted to have full contact during one session of preseason two-a-days. And during the season, players are limited to 30 minutes of contact per day and 60 minutes per week. The changes hit close to home for one high school athlete.
Yesterday, they were doing the hitting drills, and I was really mad because I couldn't play.
Eli Karst took a hard hit during Zane Trace's first day of full contact this summer.
My feet went dead. I was like completely I was really out of it.
All signs of a head injury. And after Eli's parents took him to the hospital, the doctors said he had a concussion.
It's probably different for me than it is my husband. Most of the guys enjoy hearing the hard hitting. Which our doctor told us it's always the second hit that's the worst. especially if it comes after the first hit not being really taken care of properly.
In order to prevent another concussion, Zane Trace's trainer took precaution by putting Eli through a 5-step program. This keeps athletes off the field for 5 days to focus on recovery.
My thing is we just need to be attentive and just kind of keep on top of it.
According to Chafin, Zane Trace coaches put safety first.
I have not had any problems when it comes to a coach questioning as far as, if this kid really should be out or if they shouldn't be out.
The OHSAA guidelines urge other coaches to act the same come kickoff on Friday nights.
Well, Eli, he's back and practicing full contact, and now he's just counting down the days until Zane Trace meets up with Logan next Friday.
Thanks, Blaine. In the past 5 years, the TVC Hocking crown has gone to the team that finished with a 10-0 record. Trimble has claimed the past 2 titles on their way to consecutive regional championships.
History repeated itself in the TVC Hocking as the Trimble Tomcats finished on top with another undefeated record. Coming up behind them was a surprising Belpre squad who jumped from 6th to 2nd, refusing to go unnoticed. After recording their second loss of the season against Wahama, the Golden Eagles won their last 6, including a 55-point victory over Eastern. Manny Tullius was the sole graduate of their 2014 class. Eastern finished 4th in the conference with a 5-3 record, ironically just sliding behind Wahama, who went 6-2, but lost to Eastern late in the season. South Gallia came in with an even 500 record for the second year in a row. However, 3 of their 4 conference losses were to the top 3 Hocking squads. After a first-ever playoff appearance in 2013, Southern fell to the 6th slot in 2014, dropping notable losses to Eastern and Waterford. The Wildcats opened with a strong start to the season, but fell off the deep end as the season progressed, only adding one other Hocking win. They weren't alone, finishing 2-6, as Federal Hocking cashed in with the same regular season record. Fed Hawk and Waterford met Miller at the bottom as the Falcons sunk and were never able to recover. Miller failed to register a single conference win in the 2014 season.
Writing history has become second nature for the Cats out in Gloucester. Lucky for us, Kelsey Steele is there to capture every Trimble moment. And with 2015, there's going to be some familiar faces that they're going to be without.
Trimble lost a whopping 13 seniors to graduation last season, which means saying goodbye to a bundle of household names. We'll leave it to the Tomcats to find the good and goodbye. Austin Downs is back as a wide receiver coach, and Justice Jenkins, well, he's prepping to surpass his 1,613 total yards in 2014. And of course, Andrew Losey back at the helm in QB territory, but unlike years past, defense is the weakest link. Keep an eye out for TJ Spears and Jonathan Roback to carry the D-line. Roback is one of the only Tomcats in the program's history to start all 4 years, a special stat in itself.
And Losey is just one of the 14 Trimble seniors this season, and speaking of experience, Belpre and Wahama fall right into that category.
Belpre easily the surprise of the Hocking last season, and losing just one senior in 2014, this may be their year. Returning Tavian Miller along with Nathan Mason and Dejon Bedgood, Belpre has a lot to look forward to. Now the Golden Eagles are still fighting for their first ever playoff victory in an undefeated season. But not if Wahama has anything to say about it. The White Falcons shared the second place spot with Belpre last season, and they returned a number of vets, including starting fullback Billy McDermott. Wahama is looking at 12 seniors to lead them to their 7th straight playoff appearance.
And the Hocking is filled with veteran players, but it's no secret they all have the same goal in mind.
Of course, every team wants a playoff win, but this year, the Hocking has had enough of Trimble's success. The Tomcats are on the chopping block, and all of the Hocking wants them to know.
Well, I know they're the top dog the past few years. Well, it's been about 10 years now. I think their run's been a little bit too long. It is. I'm just saying. So they got to get beat sometime. Why not us?
Shots fired. Well, it'll be interesting to see how the mid to bottom of the conference fares with over the season. Now Eastern, South Gallia, and Southern, they have the option to shake some things up. And if Waterford, Fed Hawk, and Miller can rebuild in a few key areas, it'll make for an interesting year in the Hocking.
Well, thanks, Kelsey. If you've been following along with our coverage of two-a-days, you probably noticed that Gridiron is a big fan of the Dancing Ghost because we've been using Snapchat for the first time this year. All season long, you can watch practices and game highlights right from your phone by adding Gridiron Glory on Snapchat. And feel free to Snapchat us because your picture may end up on the show. But Snapchat isn't the only thing we've added. You can get an exclusive behind-the-scenes look of the show by following Gridiron Glory on Periscope, And speaking of things that we've added on this show, 5 new teams that span 2 talented conferences. If you're counting, that's 35 teams that we now cover. And I'm sure Carly Bell would agree with me, the more the better.
Justin, I'm always happy when we get to cover more football here at Gridiron. 5 teams, 2 different conferences, there's nothing better. More Friday night action for Gridiron, so let's dive right in to those 5 squads that are new to the GG crew and to you.
The Scioto Valley Conference has some stacked teams. This year, Gridiron Glory will cover both Zane Trace and Unioto. Zane Trace ended 2014 on top of the SVC. New head coach Dwayne Hall is rebuilding the Pioneers from the ground up. With a senior-heavy team, Coach Hall thinks this season's squad can make an appearance come Week 11. The Unioto Sherman Tanks look to challenge the Pioneers this season. Every Unioto captain says the Zane Trace matchup is the one they've had circled on their calendars all preseason. The Sherman Tanks also have a new head coach. Coach Jeff Meltzer served as the team's defensive coordinator since 2010 and wants to bring that defensive mindset into the head coach role. Over to the Mid-State League, Amanda Clear Creek has a big threat returning in the backfield, and his name is Jordan Leisure. He shattered records last year with 1,800 rushing yards and is confident that he can make a greater impact in the 2015 season. Now the Aces have the disadvantage of playing Division IV teams instead of Division V teams come playoff time. Now Fairfield Union, they sat in the basement of the MSL, not winning a single conference game. The Falcons will have a youthful squad, losing their quarterback, backfield, and a lot of their offensive line to graduation. They'll look to get back to their winning ways with Coach Bahan at the helm. The Bloom Carroll Bulldogs joined the Falcons last season at the bottom of the conference. However, their energetic coach, Wade Bartholomew, hopes his young team can out-hustle their opponents. Running an up-tempo, no-huddle offense, the Bulldogs hope to change the image of Bloom Carroll football.
It's always great to see new faces and new talent, and talent, that's one thing that is not lacking with all these 5 teams. The season is creeping closer and closer, and it's time for these squads to get their glory on the gridiron.
Thanks, Carly. While new things are great, it's always good to keep tradition, and that's exactly what the SEOAL has. The conference turned 90 years old last year, and the Jackson Ironmen made sure they secured their 23rd football title.
In 2014, the SEOAL was really a 2-team race to the title, with reigning champion Logan and longtime favorite Jackson battling for first place. The Jackson Ironmen ended up capturing the title behind the leadership of Gridiron Glory Coach of the Year Andy Hall. Junior quarterback Hunter Sexton earned the Gridiron Glory Player of the Year award by helping the Ironmen to a perfect 4-0 record in league play and a 10-0 record overall. Right behind them were the Logan Chieftains. Junior quarterback Lane Little came back from an injury in 2013 to lead a high-powered Logan offense, but tackling proved to be the biggest problem as the defense just couldn't hold up against the likes of Jackson, giving Logan a 3-1 league record. The Gowrie Academy Blue Devils came in at 3rd, finishing with an even 2-2 record in SEOAL play. After the departure of a great senior class, inexperience and injuries proved to be too much for the Blue Devils as they fell in some close games. And rounding out the bottom of the standings were the Warren Warriors, who didn't get a win in league play, but had a young team that got better every week and were competitive late in the season.
They say all good things come to an end, and that may be true for the SEOAL. Danny Dean will be there to cover it all season long. So Danny, my question is, will Jackson be able to repeat and get the last SEOAL title?
Well, Jackson is definitely the team with the biggest bullseye on their chest this season. They have all the expectation and all the ability. The Ironmen just need to put it all together. There's a force of 14 seniors on the roster with some names that may ring a bell for you. We have GG 2014 Player of the Year, Hunter Sexton. He is back to take the snaps as a dominant dual threat quarterback, and he has a lot of help on the ground. You'll see Johnny Farley and Reagan Conley carrying the ball as they made the move to running back this season. Coach Andy Hall told me that as long as they take it one game at a time, they have the potential to go undefeated yet again.
And Jackson is obviously the team to beat, but who's going to give them the biggest test this year?
I gotta go with the Logan Chieftains. This tight-knit team has their focus all on playing in Week 11. Returning is quarterback Lane Little, along with his main targets, wide receiver Isaiah Smith and running back Bryce McBride. They're looking really versatile this season. They have a lot of key players to step up come crunch time, but also don't count out Gowrie Academy. They put in a lot more work this offseason, this being the 2nd year with their coaching staff. Returning QB Cole Carter said he's more motivated than ever to show everyone the Blue Devils' improvement.
Well, they're also faster and more athletic, but I know Warren had a rough time last year. Do you see any improvements coming from the Warriors?
Well, Justin, the Warriors' motto this season really says it all. Day by day, we'll get better and better. The Warriors graduated 17 players last year, but they still have some standouts. Justice Johnson at tailback and Jake Davis returning as fullback. But what stood out the most was their ability to finish, or their passion this season, to finish strong in what may be the end of the SCOAL.
You know, if you walk into the gymnasium, you'll see an SCOAL football championship banner in 1995. Why not have one 20 years later? And I told them from day one when we found out the league might be crumbling, nothing better than to win the very last SCOAL championship.
Clearly, the Warriors want to go out with a bang, and their mindset is to work as hard as they need to make that a reality.
Well, thanks a lot, Danny. We'll be looking for that. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Snapchat, but don't forget, we still do an Instagram pick of the week. All you have to do is follow WOUB Sports and use the hashtag Glory15. The picture is great, but it's only half the battle. Come up with a creative caption to go along with your picture, and don't forget, use the hashtag Glory15. And hey, Fetty Wap made a song named Instagram, so what other reason do you really need? To give you a good idea of how tough the MBL was last year, the top 3 teams finished with 10 wins, 9 wins, and 8 wins, as Tri-Valley came out on top for the 4th year in a row.
We saw fierce competition in the MBL last year with 4 teams finishing above 500 in league play. As the season wound down, it appeared it was Tri-Valley's division to lose once again, with the only question being who would be their top competition for a league title. This question was soon answered after a thrilling triple overtime matchup between Sheridan and Maysville, with Maysville coming out on top, effectively knocking Sheridan out of the race for the MBL title. In the middle of the pack was New Lexington and Crooksville, who finished their seasons at 5-5, as well as Philo and John Glenn, who finished at 4-6, while West End and Morgan rounded out the conference at 2-8 and 0-10 respectively. 2 undefeated teams came into Week 9, Maysville and Tri-Valley, but only one would leave crowned as the MBL champions. That team was the Scotties, who handed the Panthers their largest regular season defeat in a blowout 35-7 victory. Both Tri-Valley and Maysville made the playoffs, but each had their seasons cut short in the second round. The Panthers lost to Beechcroft 35-0, while Tri-Valley fell at the hands of the Athens Bulldogs 41-20.
Man, MBL titles continue to pour in for Tri-Valley. 4 in a row now. Nathan Wiseman and Megan Stamper are here. And guys, in a conference as tough as this, their run into 5th could be their toughest yet.
Oh, most definitely, Justin. This league runs through Dresden, and the Scotties are used to that pressure, but one major area of concern for this team is depth. And that's a problem they haven't had to deal with in a while.
Yeah, Nathan, not only did Tri-Valley lose their starting quarterback Brock Vargas, they also lost Hunter Muller, Bubby Scott, and Logan Bash. After losing so much talent, now may be the time for other MBL teams to take the league title from Tri-Valley.
I know. That sounds crazy to think about, but there's just so many question marks on this team. Now, I expect Tyler McGee to get the nod at QB in Week 1. He is a senior, but doesn't have much varsity experience under his belt. That inexperience from most of his starters could allow a veteran team like Maysville to claim the MBL title this year.
Yeah, unlike Tri-Valley, Maysville is returning a lot of starters from 2014. They did lose their quarterback Jacob Miller, but they have plenty of talent on offense. Running back Chase Roberts looks to have a bounce-back year after battling injuries last season, and Chase Himmelsbach and Johnny Runkle round out the backfield along with Roberts for what should be a very exciting offense to watch this year.
Man, Roberts brings the speed. Runkle's a bruiser of a back. That's one tough backfield. But out in Sheridan, the Generals, they'll be rebuilding this year, but expect them to stay in the top tier of the MBL. Junior quarterback Dylan Dupler has varsity experience, size, and the mechanics to possibly be the best quarterback in the MBL.
Yeah, and John Glenn, New Lex, and Crooksville are on the cusp of breaking into the top of the MBL with goals to return to the postseason. But I think Maysville has the best chance at winning the league this year with all the talent and experience that they bring back.
Thanks a lot, guys. Snapchat and Periscope are the new kids on the block, but that doesn't mean we've forgotten about you, Facebook. As the elder statesman of social media, we've been relying on Facebook for several years. If you haven't already, hop on Facebook and give Gridiron Glory a like. There you'll find links to articles on our website as well as pictures you wouldn't be able to see anywhere else. And while we're on the topic of tradition, Player of the Year in Southeast Ohio is synonymous with Gridiron Glory. Last year, the award went to Jackson quarterback Hunter Sexton, who's coming back for his senior year. In studio now, we have GG insider Nick Camiotti. So Nick, who's going to give the biggest competition to Sexton?
Well, Sexton is the best returning quarterback in the area, but he's not necessarily the most explosive player. The area's most explosive guy is Trimble's Justice Jenkins. Over 1,600 yards and 31 touchdowns for this guy last year. He does lose some talented pieces on the offensive line, but if he has another season with comparable numbers, I don't think there's a doubt that he'll be in the final vote.
So besides Jenkins and Sexton, what's another name that our viewers need to know heading into this year?
I personally am a really big fan of Lane Little from Logan. Logan's offense was one of the more unstoppable offenses for the first half of last year. Little was knocked out for 2013, but didn't show any rust at the beginning of 2014. Tallied 306 yards, 5 touchdowns in the opener. He returns with established weapons around him, running back Bryce McBride, wide receiver Isaiah Smith. So watch out for the Chieftains. They could surprise some people this year.
And with Joe Burrow and Trey Williams both out of the TVC Ohio, you're predicting Nelsonville York to have a big year with Alex Mount and Hunter Edwards leading that offense.
I cheated a little bit and put both of them at number 5 on my watch list last week, but I think they really are one of the best quarterback running back tandems in the area. Edwards threw for 1,180 yards and 11 touchdowns last year. Mount, comparable numbers on the ground, rushed for 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns. I think that these numbers will actually improve for both of these guys this year. And you look back to last year, Nelsonville York had 3 regular season losses: Athens, Trimble, and Logan. The Buckeyes could honestly be favored in all 3 of those games this year. So if they get this help from these 2 guys on offense, they could also be having a very, very nice season.
Well, I'm looking forward to the TVC Ohio and all the action with the NY and the Bulldogs coming back this year. But if you want to find out more on our preseason Player of the Year watch list, just head over to woub.org/gridiron. But that's not all you can do on our brand new website. You can also check out previews, power rankings, and recaps. But wait, just like an infomercial, there's more. On the web, you can see our online host, Andrew Homan, who will be bringing you videos all week long leading up to Friday night. And we are now joined by Mr. Online host himself, Andrew Homan. Andrew, what are the top tweets of the week from some of our football fans?
Justin, the one thing I learned on Twitter this week, I already knew. People can't wait for football season. Hunter Sexton dominated at quarterback last year, but Paul Sexton took to Twitter to let us know that we haven't seen the best out of the man under center. He tweeted, "You guys thought Hunter Sexton was just a QB? He's out to prove he's one of the best linebackers in Ohio." Our second tweet this week comes from a player that's hoping to leave a legacy in his final year of high school football. Briar Roop of Meggs said, "I can't wait to be with my brothers through my senior year. Let's go Marauders. Gridiron Glory, this is our year." The Marauders do have a lot of upside, and it could be anyone's year. We'll just have to wait and see.
It could definitely be anyone's year, but we've been interacting with you, the fans, on Twitter all summer long, but next week we'll be right there covering the games at some of your schools. Now, this preview show is almost over, but the good news is that we're half hour closer to kicking off week 1. It's almost here. Here's a look at the games that we'll be at next Friday.
Another offseason is in the books, and week 1 is finally here. The best part is that we don't have to wait till Friday for the football year to start. On Thursday, the Maysville Panthers travel to Crooksville, where the Ceramics look to avenge last year's 49-15 loss. Maysville, on the other hand, has started with the win the past 3 years and looks to continue that streak on Thursday. On Friday, we'll be in Waterford for their opener against the Miller Falcons, and we also get our first look at Fairfield Union when they take on New Lexington, who finished 4th place in the MBL last year. And in our game of the week, we're heading out to the Plains, where the Chieftains will take on Athens for the first time since 2007. Athens is fresh off a state championship run, but Lane Little and the Chieftains will be looking to knock off the Bulldogs and give them their first loss after 2 years of perfection. But the action doesn't end on Friday. We'll be previewing 2 rivalry games that take place on Saturday, with Jackson hosting Wellston, while Nelsonville York travels to Gloucester to take on Trimble.
And I actually got a chance to go out to Trimble, and they are so excited to take on the NY Buckeyes because that is one of their biggest rivals. But I tell you what, I can't wait to hit the Plains for our very first fan of the week to see Athens play Logan for the first time in 7 years. The last time these 2 teams played, Logan beat Athens 62-7. And that's our show, but you don't have to wait till Friday to hear from us again. We're on the web with videos and articles all week long with Andrew Homan right there on your screen. Plus, you can interact with us on social media by using that Glory15 hashtag. And for the first of many times, remember, there's nothing better than Friday nights and Gridiron Glory.